If you've caught the internet buzz or the media headlines about the UK government's intention to raise the retirement age to 71, and you're feeling anxious, you're nervous, you're uncertain as to what's going to happen between now and then lean into today's show because I will be shedding some light in terms of the context of that change and giving you 5 actions that you can take that can help to lay your foundation, prepare your journey as you may be living into a later retirement life. So, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Bybreen Samuels, and I help baby boomers reinvent themselves psychologically, practically, and technically so they can thrive in their third act of life. And if you're one of my regulars, welcome back. Great to have you here as always. So here we are. Over the last week or so, there's been this news that's been circulating around the internet that the UK government is thinking of proposing that the retirement age moves from where it is now at 66 through to 71. Now, the 71 age isn't going to happen for quite some time, but actually, what we're beginning to see is this incremental growth towards later retirement. Because currently, here in the UK, the retirement age is 66, but from March 2026 through to May 2028, the retirement age is going to move from 66 through to 67. So we're already seeing this slow march, this slow climb towards a later retirement age. But why, you must be asking? Why should we be working? Why do we have to work potentially until we're 71? Well, there are a number of factors that are shaping the decision by the UK government. And it's not only the UK government that's facing these nuances and idiosyncrasies of just culture and society. So the first one is we're living longer, which is brilliant. You know, more life means more opportunities to live, explore, and enjoy. On the other hand, it's going to cost us to be living longer, but also living healthily. Now, the UK government and every other government is facing the crisis of longevity. We're living longer. You know, back, let's say 3, 4, 5 decades ago, it would have been really unusual to hear that somebody has lived to 100 years. However, it's literally every other week we're hearing somebody celebrating the fact that they've got to 100. Now, as baby boomers, we're moving closer to that, but actually the government's decision is impacting all generations. And so the likelihood is that in increasing numbers, we're going to be living way into our 80s, 90s, 100 and beyond. And the government literally can't afford the cost of aging. So that's one of the reasons why. What's also happening is, you know, as we age, there's the likelihood that we might encounter ill health. So the decade from 60 through to 70 is a really critical one because we're moving towards retirement. We are in a position possibly where we have the money to retire, but then there's a whole swathe of us that can't actually afford to retire at the moment. So we're going to be working late into our 60s and maybe, you know, to 70, 71. So you have this whole host of people between 60 and 70 who are aging, but they're not aging well. So ill health actually kicks in. Now, if ill health kicks in, that's implications for the government, the public purse, but also the NHS. So one of the factors is that the NHS can't actually cope. They're overwhelmed and under-resourced, overwhelmed because of just the whole rising tide of people putting demands on the service. It's financially, it's not, you know, it's not fiscally resourced in a way that can meet the demand, but also there's a shortage in personnel. We're always hearing of doctors and nurses. They're so overwhelmed and they're exhausted and they're underpaid that they're leaving in droves. So the actual NHS system can't cope with where it is now, much less as all of us continue to age and age well into, you know, 80s, 90s, 100 and beyond. Then the other side of that coin is the labor force, the workforce, the labor market. So, as much as we hear diversity, equity, and inclusion, and everybody's welcome, we're in an inclusive society, and that sounds great. The reality is that the hand of ageism continues to knock very, very loudly. And you'll begin to feel this as you approach your late 40s, like I did, going into my 50s and beyond. And so you have this realization that there's a demand for workers, but there's a resistance from decision makers and companies who are willing and open and educated enough and who want to actually be employing older people. So there's the reality of ageism that older people face as A, they're either in the workforce and maybe looking for another job, or B, they're outside of the workforce and they're trying to find a job, but they're coming up against the heavy hand of ageism. So we have that. Also, there's about 10% of the whole UK population that actually is fit and healthy in their 70s. That's only 10%. You know, the UK is going on to about 70 million people. And so there's 2% of 10% who are actively and very, very fit. So we're already seeing the potential of what's going to happen as we move forward. So we've got this ageism in the workplace. We have the NHS that can't cope. We have ill health, and we have this growing life expectancy. Now, there's an organization called the Institute of Longevity Center, and they are helping the government to reconcile a ratio. And so there are more of us moving into retirement, and there has to be a balancing act. And the balancing act is between the number of people in the workforce who are contributing, they're working and they're paying taxes. And so there's a window there that really goes from if a young person moves through school and they go to college and then they do university, so they might come out at 21, 22. And so let's say that's the starting point. So we've got from like 21 through to about 64 of the population who's actually paying the taxes that's going to fund the state pensions for when retirees want to retire. Now, there's a tension point here because what we have is there's a finite number of people in that category from 21 to 64 that are moving through the world of work. But then beyond that, what we're also recognizing from a cultural and a societal point of view is that less babies are being born. And so therefore there isn't the throughput of people coming up from, younger generations who are going to be the ones who will be carrying the weight and the burden of paying the taxes, but also funding the retirement pot, because we can't forget back in 2008, 9, 10, those wilderness years of the downturn, what we all saw, who was bankrupted and what happened. But as a result of that, governments, their actual pot of money, they don't have enough money to fund the pension obligations that were made to us. So the government, not only the UK government, is really in a quandary. And so that's why this International Longevity Center, they're thinking of, well, what's the ratio that's needed? And so the ratio is 5 workers who are paying into the public pot versus 1 retiree. Now, if that is balanced, what that means is the likelihood of the retirement age increasing through to 71 may not happen because there's the ratio of 5 workers who can fund 1 retiree. But what's the reality of that? We know that's not the case because A, that finite pool has already started to diminish. It happened with COVID and then with the Great Escape. So there's people who've already left the workforce, so they're no longer contributing. And so this is what governments, the UK and other governments, they're between a rock and a hard place. And so hence why the longer that we are in the world of work means that we are contributing, and in contributing, that will then fund the pension pot. So we can see the quandary that we're in. But what does that actually mean? Well, there's an organization called the National Pensioners Convention, and what they're doing is that they've launched this campaign, and it's called 68 is Too Late. Literally, they're lobbying the government to say that A, their proposal really isn't workable, and B, and more importantly, what they're trying to do is to influence policymakers for them to reconsider the proposal, but more importantly, to include us, us as citizens, us as residents, all of the generations, because we're linked, obviously, and this is going to affect all of the generations. So it's an intergenerational conversation that needs to be had together with the public sector, the private sector, and the non-profit sector. So there needs to be more of a consultative approach to how we're going to solve the problem of aging. And how are we going to solve the problem that us as boomers, who are the next in line to receive our pensions, will there be a pension at the end of the day? Not looking too likely. So that's the context in which this announcement has been made. And there's speculation, obviously, but governments are they have to take a multidisciplinary approach to solving this problem, because the problem isn't reversing, it's increasing. We're all walking, marching, running towards aging. We're aging every second, every minute. But what will the quality of our life be if the government is not in a position to actually pay out those state pensions? Now, if you've got a private pension, that's a separate matter. But even, private companies, they were also affected by the downturn in 2008, 9, 10, etc. And so they also are up against this pressure point. They're between this rock and a hard place. But what does that mean for us? What could we begin to do? Whether it increases or doesn't increase or decreases, don't think it will decrease, or just move from 66 to 67. Well, there are 5 action points, action steps, considerations that we might want to think about between now, us particularly as boomers, and because us as boomers could be the first wave going through a longer period of working. So the first one is to get healthy or get healthier, and integrate some type of movement and exercise, because as I quoted that stat, 10% of the UK population is physically very fit and very healthy as they move into their 70s. And I am such an advocate of fitness and movement. Movement is my first language. The egg and spoon race at 5 years old kicked it off for me. But for all of us, wherever we are on the journey, whether you're more of a couch potato and you want to do something about it, or you used to be really active and you've become less active over the years and the decades, the thing is, what can you begin to do to put into place a health practice? One of the things is walking. I love walking. I don't drive, so I'm a committed non-driver. So as much as all the other exercise I do, walking is a fantastic base exercise. So you could begin, just walking daily walks that build up to maybe 10,000 steps. That would take you about maybe an hour-ish, 90 minutes, 60 minutes to 90 minutes. Introduce and just build up to that, because you're not competing against anybody. This is you with you, not you against you, you with you. So gently introduce a walking exercise that, begins to build up the heart rate, become more conscious about what you eat. Rome wasn't built in a day. So maybe try a new health habit where you're reducing or you're limiting a particular food that you really enjoy. Try that for 3 months and see what impact that has on your life and your body and your mentality. But whatever it is that you do, begin to move your body. Our bodies are designed for movement. And as somebody, I've done this for actively, consciously for decades, 5.5 decades. I really am an advocate of movement. Oops. So that's the first one. Then integrate lifelong learning. Why do we say this? Why do I say it? Why is it always out there? Because our world is changing so much. And we are living into this technologically driven world that is reliant on these apps and software that to move our lives forward. Now, if you're a baby boomer in particular, and Gen Xers that are particularly in their 50s, who may feel a bit stuck or who are outside the labor market but want to get back into the labor market, but your skills are a little bit rusty, lifelong learning. Because what you're doing is you're building up a portfolio, of the skills, knowledge, and expertise you already have from those previous careers that you've participated in. So you already have that wealth of knowledge, and don't discount it. And what you're seeking to do is to build upon it. What's happening in the world around you. So where would you start? Where could you start? Well, we are living in a digitalized world. So check out Google, literally just Google certificates. There's a whole range of courses, digital courses that can help to build up your skills so you become more relevant, to yourself, but also potentially to the job market. So get healthy, lifelong learning. Then embrace flexible work. So as you're building up these new skills, or you're rethinking your current portfolio, you're dusting off things. Oh, I was really good at that once upon a time, but I'm still good at it. I just need to bring it. I need to refresh my skills. You're thinking about flexible work. Now, we are living in a portfolio world, and we have been for, or at least the last 10, 15 years. So just think about, what are your core, your base skills that you already have, and how could they be used? Whether you do it as a freelancer, you do gig work, you do remote work, you do part-time work, or you put together your own ad about what it is that you can offer, and then you get creative. This is about the time for creativity, thinking outside of the box. Don't get hooked into Job Center Plus, because that really is a soulless journey. If you're there, trust me, I've been there. I understand what that feels like. But for me to get out of that, I had to think outside of the box. What could you do with the skills that you have that can incrementally take you, or skyrocket you, or pivot you into another area? But you have to think about the world we're in. Fragmented. Yeah, there's different things showing up on this mosaic that we're trying to put together. How we're going to fund our lives, facilitate our lives as we continue to age and move towards retirement. And then the fourth one is about seeking savvy advice. Now, financial advisors could be your secret weapon. Why? Because as we're moving through these changing times, and the change is happening rapidly, what could it mean if we have to work until 71? Whatever your fiscal pot is at the moment, whatever your savings is, whatever your budget is, get that savvy advice from a financial planner who's going to help you think through, where are you on your journey as you aim to transition out of work or non-work, or into work through to retirement? A financial planner is going to be really, as I said, your secret weapon in your back pocket. So you need the advice. Don't do this alone. Don't be stressed out. Find somebody, find a qualified person. I'm not a qualified financial advisor, so this is just information that I'm giving you, but I'm trying to introduce you to a roadmap that can take you from where you are, wherever that is, through to where you want to be. And then the fifth one is to live passionately. Fuel your life with the things you want to do. Try and erase the anxiety of what could be one reality. One reality could be that we're living into, we have to work until we're 71, but that's one reality. There are so many other realities. And so the fifth one is to live a passionate life. Now, what do I mean by living a passionate life? Is that I embrace everything that I want to do in my life. I'm doing it in one form or another. So I integrate. I live a very integrated life. You have your own version of that. What is it that fuels you? What is it that you can do? And then you look up, you think, oh my God, where has the time gone? What is that thing? What are those things? What are your hobbies? What are your interests? Do you want to travel? I love traveling and can't wait to get on another plane, boat, train, whatever. That moves me from where I am into, the life that I am living, and I'm just living it more expansively. What does that mean for you? Do you want to volunteer in a particular way? Or do you just really want to spend more time with you? Are you exploring a spiritual practice? Are you exploring other forms of personal development? Or you just want to hang out with your family and your friends? Whatever it is, live passionately, because tomorrow isn't promised. And there's this fantastic quote from a friend of mine who his friend's mother used to say, "It's late enough already." I love that. Time isn't promised to any of us. We make assumptions about how long we've got left. So living passionately pulls you into your future, but makes it a present day reality. So that's what I want to share about this news that's floating around the internet. What does it mean for you? Let's kind of open up the dialogue and the conversation. What does retirement mean for you? Have you already retired and you're living a very nice life? Are you on the fringes of retirement, but it's like you need a couple more things of your jigsaw pieces to put those together? Are you a long way from retirement, but you're still active? You still got chutzpah? You still want to contribute to yourself and society? What does that look like? Let's get into a dialogue. Let's share and explore with each other what can be done, because each and every one of us has a responsibility to begin to shape and contribute the world that we live in. And so as the government proposes this, and thinking about that national pensioners convention and their 68 is too late campaign, it's about how do we individually and yet collectively bring pressure to bear on governments. Okay, they're talking about we may have to work until 71. Well, what arrangements and initiatives do they have in place whereby we could be working flexibly, but there's also support as we age, elder support, elder care support, different options. The government needs to be more creative. If the intention is that we have to live longer, what are the infrastructural resources that facilitate so that less of us live in fear, anxiety, and poverty as we age, so we can do this together? I'd love to hear your comments. Put them in the comment box below, and I will certainly respond. If there's any particular topics, as you know, I'm here to help facilitate the lives of fabulous baby boomers wherever they are on their journey, psychologically, practically, and technically, so they can thrive. We can thrive as baby boomers as we continue to move into the third act of life, which is a juicy proposition. I turned 60 last year and I'm absolutely loving the journey, and yet cognizant to the realities that all of us are sharing. So put your comment in the comment box below, and please like, share, subscribe to my channel, and tell other baby boomers to come hang out with us here on a Sunday at 3:30. Stay well, and I will see you again next Sunday. Bye-bye.